Hello, BookTube. I've got some mail for you today on a boiling hot summer day here in Boston, the 17th of September. But it's boiling hot, soppingly humid, the type of thing where you get your errands done first thing in the morning before the heat of the day settles in. This is the new normal, I would imagine, so I'm not going to complain about it too much. Just about 10 minutes per video. I don't have to do it. We've got a periodical and some packages here. And the periodical is the TLS, the London Times Literary Supplement, which is the greatest English language literary journal in the world. And I love it. I've loved it forever. Loved it from when it was the Lit Sup. And I can tell right away that they're going to have a long review of the new biography of Tom Gunn. Yeah, a review by Sean O'Brien of the new biography of Tom Gunn. Okay, so how long a space did they give it? Oh my God. Oh my God. 2.5 pages. Good Lord. Okay, that's a lot. Well, that's going to be, obviously, it's the first thing in the, oh wow. HarperCollins in the UK has the new collected poems of J.R.R. Tolkien. 1,600 pages. I want that. Me wanty. Oh my. I wonder if that's going to come out in this country. Surely it will. Surely it will. Tolkien has a huge readership in this country. Okay, I'm going to need to, sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm going to have to look into that. But the Tom Gunn review always gives little butterflies in the stomach for me because I've reviewed it and it's a major thing. It's a major work. So this is a long review in one of the most prestigious venues you can get. Will this reviewer find things that I missed? Have legitimate criticisms that I didn't think to level? Will it be, in fact, just a better review? We shall see. I'll be interested to see. So let's move on here. Let's see this next one. This one has a handwritten. Okay, this is called Represent, the Unfinished Fight for the Vote by Michael Eric Dyson and Mark Favreau. Okay, so what have we got here? What is this? Okay. This is for review. So this must be a 2024 release, yes? Little Brown. Yeah, 2024. Okay, we don't have a sheet for this, but I'm going to be reviewing this. We just read from the dust jacket here. Everyone deserves to vote and to be represented, but no one can take that right for granted. The fight for voting rights is one of the most important but least understood stories of our nation. This book tells that story from the American Revolution to the 21st century. Each chapter introduces a battle between the forces of people power and the forces opposed to it. You'll meet champions of freedom who fought for the vote, formerly enslaved revolutionaries, a Chinese-American teenager, a Lakota Sioux activist, black World War II veterans, a Mexican-American student, and others, people like you who wanted a say in what their country looks like. Drawing on clear lines from then to now, renowned thought leader Michael Eric Dyson, oh my God, I can't hear that phrase without thinking of. Of course, you all know what TED Talks are, but there's a priceless, a perfect parody of a TED Talk called "How to Be a Thought Leader." That is just. I'll try to remember to link it down below. It is so funny. It's so perfectly deadly. TED Talks themselves should have packed up and closed up shop after that thing was published. And widely celebrated author Mark Favreau weave this important struggle into a single American drama that makes sense of our past, present, and future. And one of these two has got to have some connection to Martha's Vineyard, because I'm going to be reviewing this for the Vineyard Gazette. Is it the thought leader, Michael Eric Dyson? He's a native of Detroit and currently lives in Nashville. No. Mark Favreau. The director of editorial programs at New Press. He lives in Martha's Vineyard. Okay, so it's him. All right. Represent. fascinating. I'm up for it anyway. I love my editor at the Martha's Vineyard Gazette. I've shown it to you many times. It's a broadsheet black and white newspaper on the island of Martha's Vineyard, and I'm their book reviewer, and I love it. But the books coverage for the Vineyard Bookshelf on the Vineyard Gazette takes one approach to a small town newspaper, which is basically what the Vineyard Gazette is. There are one of two approaches. You can either make it a small town paper where it's going to have a local angle. Everything you do is going to have a local angle. The Vineyard Gazette takes that approach, not just in the main sections, but even in the book section. There has to be some connection to the vineyard. Either the author is from the vineyard or their book is about the vineyard, but otherwise no. Or you can say what I say. I am also a local book section editor, and I say there is no such thing as a local books reader. So why would you do that? Instead, I'm going to make my books coverage reflect the broader reading world. And both of those are legitimate. I've actually had this job as the arts editor of a small newspaper where that was the agreed upon, the institutional focus from the top down, where I was told by my editor-in-chief, we're a local newspaper. So it has to have some sort of local angle. You find that I'm willing to stretch it quite a bit to allow it, but you can't just ignore that. I've had jobs like that, and it's a perfectly legitimate way to do something. It's just not the way I do it. And now that I'm unbelievably in the 10th act of my life and back to being a newspaper book section editor, I don't do it that way. So, but there is a connection here. This is a national subject, but one of the authors is from the Vineyard. So I'll be reviewing that. That's great. I mean, I might be reviewing all of these. Let's see what they are. I might be writing up all of these things. What is this next one? It's bright pink, whatever it is. Oh, great. Okay, we've already seen this. I've actually read it. It's quite entertaining. It doesn't do what it says it will do, but it's quite entertaining. This is by Susanna Monso, and it is Playing Possum: How Animals Understand Death. And let's see here. This comes out in mid-October, so bright pink on your bookstore shelves. When the opossum feels threatened, she becomes paralyzed. Her body temperature plummets, her breathing and heart rate drop to a minimum, and her glands simulate the smell of a putrefying corpse. My Deb has done that on 4 of our separate honeymoon evenings. I think that I elicited a panic response. I can't imagine how. This book explores what the opossum and other creatures can teach us about how we and other species understand mortality, and demonstrates that the concept of death, far from being a uniquely human attribute, is widespread in the animal kingdom. The opossum has no concept of death. Okay. With humor and empathy, the author tells the stories of ants who attend their own funerals, chimpanzees who clean the teeth of their dead, dogs who snack on their caregivers, crows who avoid the places where they saw a carcass, elephants obsessed with collecting ivory, and whales who carry their dead for weeks. The author, one of today's leading experts on animal cognition and ethics, shows how there are more ways to conceive of mortality than the human way, and challenges the notion that the only emotional reactions to death worthy of our attention are the ones that resemble our own. And that aspect of this book is by far the best part of it. So, very happy to have the finished copy here. That's wonderful. I will certainly be writing about this. So that's 2 that I will certainly be writing about. I say certainly because some things I get, I'm going to want somebody else to write about. Or just not to be mean here, but some things that I get aren't going to be worth writing about, me or anybody else. They're not going to be reviewable or review worthy. I have a lower threshold for that. To tear this apart, to tear it apart like a rampaging water buffalo. I have a lower threshold for that than a lot of people do. I'll read anything, and I look always for the good or the worth in whatever I'm reviewing. But even so, some books, if your book is flyweight and cutesy poo, well, okay, what are you going to do? What am I going to do with the review? I'm going to say that I'm going to put a butterfly on a torture rack. I don't think so. No. So let's see what this next one is, and see if I've talked myself out of reviewing it. Oh no, great. Oh, okay, great. This is a late September release. Oh, good. Okay. glad to see this. Here, I was bad-mouthing you, darling, but I need not have. Let's get all this out of the way. This is... Okay, I don't need 20 pages of hand-holding. I really don't. Let's get you out of the way here. This is from the great folks at Minotaur Books. This is Death by Misadventure by Tasha Alexander, the finished copy. We've seen this already as well. This series is terrific. The Lady Emily books are terrific. If you haven't read them and you're in the mood for a new mystery series, you can't go wrong with this. You ought to give them a try. And they bounce all over the world too, which is great. A lot of these things don't. The Lady Emily books avoid the Cabot Cove syndrome by bouncing all over the world. The Cabot Cove syndrome being Jessica Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote, where fans were pointing out from the 5th season of that show when it was on TV, let alone all the books, were pointing out that there have been thousands of murders in this little town. That would attract worldwide attention. There would be reporters watching literally every move that Jessica Fletcher makes. Not because she's a famous author, but because there are 2 or 3 murders every day in Cabot Cove. And one of the ways to avoid that, of course, if you've got a long-running murder series, that's going to be a problem. One of the ways to avoid that is to have your characters move around. So what have we got here? And some of you will have seen this already, but we'll read it for those of you who are new. Tasha Alexander's elegant and escapist historical murder series has taken readers around the world, through the Victorian age. Constantinople, Normandy, Venice, Paris, the French Riviera, St. Petersburg, Greece, high society London, the English countryside, Egypt, Scottish Highlands. I thought the English countryside one was particularly strong. And unfortunately, I was not all that happy with the Venice one, which is kind of weird. Now, this book transports readers to a lavish villa in the Bavarian Alps, where Lady Emily must solve a string of high-stakes accidents. In this book, Lady Emily and her husband, Colin Hargreaves, are invited to the opulent home of Baroness Ursula von Duchtel in the Bavarian Alps. Last time that happened to me, it did not end well. Outside, in a mountainous winter wonderland with a view of Mad King Ludwig's fairy tale castle. Inside, the villa hosts a magnificent but eclectic art collection, as well as an equally eclectic collection of fellow guests. Among them a musician, an art dealer, a coquette from the demi-monde, and Caspar, the Baroness's boorish son-in-law, whom, it begins to appear, someone once dead. Almost 40 years earlier, Nils, a young German lord, sings to himself in the forest surrounding these same Alps, capturing the attention of a not-yet-mad King Ludwig. Nils and the king become fast friends. And if any of you know anything about King Ludwig, you'll know it won't stop there. Their relationship deepening into something more as their time together stretches on. King Ludwig did not need a whole lot of time. He had wandering hands, as a previous generation said. Ludwig is content to live out a fantasy where their responsibilities don't matter and the outside world doesn't affect them. But Niels knows their bliss cannot last forever. Decades later, Emily continues to investigate Caspar's increasingly lethal mishaps when tragedy strikes, ensnaring the guests in a web of fear and suspicion. It's up to Emily to sift through old secrets and motivations, some stretching far into the past, to unmask the killer. So can we do that? We haven't read page 1. I've read this. I'm gladly read it again. I'll put it on the pile for tonight. It's just what I want for tonight. But you haven't read it. We have not read a single page of it. We've just read the pub sheet. Can we guess? Can we take a guess at what's going on and who's responsible? Who's responsible for these mishaps to Caspar? Who would that be? My money is on the Baroness, who probably was jilted by King Ludwig. The time frame adds up. I'm going to guess that she's the guilty one. but most of my guesses about this book were wrong. I think I made that guess when I hadn't read it, when I read the advance copy. So what do you think? If you read that summary and nothing else, what would you think? But in the meantime, before you read this, see that your library gets this whole series and give it a try if you haven't. They're really good. They're really enjoyable. All right, well, I will review this as well. So we're 3 for 3. So let's do the last one here, and we'll see. Is this going to be... So I've not got... a problem kind of book. I have not got one of those yet. In fact, I got extra because that I showed you that book, that indie published book about Willie Mays, uh, fictionalized biography or biographical fiction, however you want to, whatever line it treads. A self-published thing with their three busts of the three players on the cover. I got that in the mail one day, and then I came back and talked to you about it. And it turns out I'm going to review it. So that is fantastic. I'm going to get to sing its praises. So let's see what this next one is. Okay, we have no sheet for this one. Oh my. Okay, this is by Lee Allen Dugatkin, and this is called Dr. Calhoun's Mousery. The strange tale of a celebrated scientist, a rodent dystopia, and the future of humanity. How's that for a cover? That is so awesome. That is an awesome cover. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, that's the author's photo. He is not posing with his dog. He is posing with a fox. How incredible. He is an evolutionary biologist and historian of science at the Department of Biology at the University of Louisville. And he's, among his many books, he's the co-author of How to Tame a Fox and Build a Dog. That must be what that's from, that famous experiment. And the author of Mr. Jefferson and the Giant Moose, Power in the Wild, and most recently, The Well-Connected Animal. And we saw The Well-Connected Animal on this channel. Okay, so I don't have a sheet for this. We'll just read from the dust jacket as if I were hounding your steps at your bookstore when you're just trying some peace and quiet. It was the strangest of experiments. What began as a utopian environment where mice had sumptuous accommodations, had all the food and water they could want, and were free from disease and predators, turned into a mouse hell. Science writer and animal behaviorist Dugatkin introduced readers to the peculiar world of rodent researcher John Bumpus Calhoun. In this enthralling tale, the author shows how an ecologist turned psychologist turned futurist became a science rock star embedded in the culture of the 1960s and 70s. As interest grew in his rodent cities, Calhoun was courted by city planners, and his work was reflected in everything from Tom Wolfe's hard-hitting writing to the children's book Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim. Is this ringing any bells to you? Another book we saw on this channel? He was invited to meetings with Royal Society and the Pope and taken seriously when he proposed a worldwide cybernetic brain, a decade before others made the internet a reality. Readers see how Calhoun's experiments, rodent apartment complexes like Mouse Universe 25, led to his concept of behavioral sinks, with real effects on public policy discussions. Overpopulation in Calhoun's mouse and rat complexes. There was another book just recently on his rat complexes. So this guy's getting 2 new releases. And any editor, any book section editor who's paying attention to that fact, and who hasn't yet taken or commissioned a review of that Rat Utopia book, will want to run a review of the 2 of these together. They're just a little bit too far apart. Most editors will already have either passed on the Rat book or run the piece. And maybe kicking themselves because maybe they'd like to include this and they can't anymore. But places that have a little bit longer time or a little bit more lackadaisical attitude towards how current their reviews are, maybe they've been sitting on that Rat Utopia book for a while, thinking this seems really interesting. I can tell them it was really interesting. Maybe they've been sitting on it a while. Suddenly they get this in the mail thinking, oh, okay, let's do both of these. This is about the same guy. So let's do both of these. One dealing with rats, one dealing with mice. Let's do both of these. But anyway, overpopulation in Calhoun's mouse and rat complexes led to the loss of sex drive, the absence of maternal care, and a class of automatons that included beautiful ones who spent their time grooming themselves while shunning socialization. So we finally have an explanation for Gen Z. Calhoun, and those who followed his work, saw the collapse of this mouse population as a harbinger of the ill effects of overpopulation in the human world. Okay, all right, fantastic. Okay, well, I don't have a sheet for this, but I'm assuming it's coming up soon. And this is the other side of Calhoun's research. There was a book just recently on the rat side of his research. I remember when I was reading that book thinking, that book makes mention of the fact that he also experimented on mice. I was curious to know about that. I don't get a whole lot of it in that other book. Now I do. Great. Fantastic. All right. Well, I'll be reviewing this one as well, depending. If it's 2 months old, I probably won't. But there you go. Oh, there was one other thing, too. This thing. Which I opened off camera. I've opened a lot off camera, but this one seemed to be worth it. Let's add this to the pile. This is Shakespeare's Tragic Art by Rodri Lewis. Very simple, very stark cover there. A hefty tome on Shakespeare. You don't get many of those for the popular press. This is Princeton University Press. That's pretty popular. Let's read this one as well. In this book, the author offers a powerfully original reassessment of tragedy as Shakespeare wrote it, of what drew him towards tragic drama, what makes his tragedies distinctive, and why they matter. An original reassessment of those things. After reconstructing tragic theory and the practice as Shakespeare and his contemporaries knew them, the author considers in detail each of Shakespeare's tragedies from Titus Andronicus to Coriolanus. He argues that these plays are a series of experiments whose greatness lies in their author's nerve-straining determination to represent the experience of living in the world that eludes rational analysis. They explore not just our inability to know ourselves as we would like to, but compensatory and generally unacknowledged fictions to which we bind ourselves in our own hunger for meaning. From the political, philosophical, social, and religious to the racial, sexual, personal, and familial, the author Shakespeare not only creates tragedies that exceed those written before them, through his art he also affirms and invigorates the kinds of knowing that are available to intelligent animals like us. So that sounds hefty, and I wanted to include, I had it sitting on the footlocker here because I didn't want to just pass it over, especially since I might write about it. And the author teaches English at Princeton University. And I believe he had one Shakespeare book that I have read. Oh no, yeah, that's not doing it. His bio says that his previous books include Hamlet and the Visions of Darkness, and Language, Mind, and Nature: Artificial Languages in England from Bacon to Locke. But I could swear he wrote something else that I have read. Well, I'll figure it out when I write about it. But anyway, a Shakespeare book. So something very much that I could write about. I haven't done that yet this year. So we have Shakespeare's Tragic Art. We have Death by Misadventure with Mad King Ludwig off on the side. Really good stuff. We have Represent, a book about the fight to vote in this country, whether you agree with the opening statement of the Dust Jacket or not. Are you perhaps in a very, very small minority of Americans who thinks that the vote should be restricted to people who can prove that they can do it? Just like driving, only far more dangerous. Are you perhaps in the small minority that says that if you can't name your representatives and your senators, you shouldn't be able to vote? Are you perhaps in that very small minority who says that there ought to be a qualification to vote? That well, then this book won't be for you, or it'll get your goat. And then finally, Playing Possum. So we have a couple of books on animals here. Playing Possum is about how animals conceive of death. We also have the mouse book there. So this is the full Steve Pyramid here of mail for today, of how animals conceive of death. It's tricky because if you're going to talk about an animal's conception of death, you have to talk about their conception of self, because death is the cessation of self. And there aren't a lot of animals who have the human-style conception of self. I think the author does a really good job with it. I don't know, Playing Possum is Princeton University Press, so it's not going to have a price on it, but it's probably going to be expensive. Probably $30 or $35. So you might want to get it from your library. But it's endlessly thought-provoking. I think it is well worth your time if you, even if you disagree with some of the author's claims. It'll be well worth your time. I just don't know about just scooping it up at the bookstore. Unless you're flush with money, that would be great. You should support your bookstore if you are. But anyway, there you go. There's books and the TLS with a long piece about that Tom Gunn biography that I'm going to read right away. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.